All right, everyone, for the record, this meeting is being recorded. Molly Loudon, to your question, you're on mute right now, so nobody can hear any of that. I'll let you know if it's a problem later. So, Norb, you should be able to unmute. Good. Looks like you're good.
Good. All right. Well, I'll sing a little song here. It's by my friend Malcolm Dalglish. Oh, it appeared. It's not really a sing-along kind of song, but if you want to, you can sing anyway because you're home alone. I'll show you how I'm feeling, Lord, any day. I'll shake these bones and shout and sing my life away. I'll shake these bones and I will shout and sing my life away. It won't be long before these bones turn to clay. I'll tell you what I'm feeling, Lord, anytime. I'll tell you lies, I'll tell you dreams you won't mind. I'll tell you lies, I'll tell you dreams I know that you won't mind. There's something there that's out of reach, I will find. I'll tell you what I'm seeing, Lord, everywhere. It may be only a small part of what is there. It may be only a small part of what is really there. But I'll stumble like the blind man, Lord, without fear. I'll tell you what I'm hearing, Lord, all the time. I'm hearing songs and melodies in my mind. I'm hearing songs and melodies, and when they're out of mind, I'll hear the sweetest piece of all left behind. I'll show you how I'm living, Lord, every day. I may not fall down on my knees and start to pray. I may not fall down on my knees and worship you or pray, but there's reverence in my laughter, Lord, anyway. I'll show you who I'm loving, Lord, in the night. And when the door is open, Lord, and filled with light, and when the door is open, Lord, and filled with the morning light, we'll hear the child that calls to us out of sight. I'll show you who I'm loving, Lord, in the day. And to all my fellow people, Lord, these words I'll say. To all my fellow people, Lord, these loving words I'll say. And I'll shake these bones and shout and sing my life away. I'll show you how I'm loving, Lord, any day. I'll shake these bones and shout and sing my life away. I'll shake these bones and I will shout and sing my life away. It won't be long before these bones turn to clay.
Welcome. Molly, you should be able to go.
I did. Here I am. Happy Orthodox Easter, everyone. The theme today is thresholds, which is a new Celtic practice to me and one that I find very reassuring. When I wake up in the morning, I say, "Bless to me, O God, this day." When I walk out of the room, bless to me, O God, the next thing I'm going to do. When I go to sleep, bless to me, O God, my rest. The Celts expressed their relationship and their awareness of God all day long. And one of the ways they did this was paying attention to the thresholds when they went into a new room, when they went into a new activity, in the morning when the sun was up, in the evening when the sun went down. The men in Ireland still doff their cap in the morning. The women in Ireland, some of them still curtsy to the moon. They are aware of God all day long, and especially at threshold times. Now, I'm Molly Maisie O'Neill Loudon. I have a very Celtic name, and I finally have lived into my name at 78 years old. And there are 9 of us who join together to bring community, to offer our gifts and ideas, and to nurture spirits, and to be connected. Thank you for taking time on this beautiful Sunday to join us. If you have a request for private prayer during the week, please say so in chat. Include your name and phone number, and Wes or I will call and pray with you. And if you have a request for prayer from the entire team, also put that in chat. On Sunday, April 18th, there were over 20 of us on the Celtic Contemplative Walk in the Ethel Walker Woods in Simsbury. We were celebrating the earth. It was easy in Ethel Walker Woods on that day. Shar and Sherry are going to facilitate our next walk, which will be Sunday, May 16, at the Hillstead Museum grounds. If you have never walked there, it is beautiful. And we would love to have you join us for contemplative hike, talking about thresholds when we talk. Please stay with us after the worship service is over for discussion. Sherry Evans, who is doing the reflection today, will facilitate. But this is our time to do what Pelagius told us. Don't tell them who God is, they know. Just empower their gifts. Well, we want to hear from you what you know about God, what your experience is, where you meet God. And we absolutely do not expect it to conform to any creed, any religion, any doctrine. We're grateful that you took the time to be with us. We hope that what we have prepared for you will remind you that you and the divine spirit within you are valued and actually necessary for our Celtic community. Let us pray. God, you created unity in the midst of diversity. We acknowledge that human diversity is an expression of your manifold love for all creation. Enable us to be the architects of understanding and love. Help us to always remember that we have much more in common than we do in differences. Give us the grace and strength to always welcome, accept, and treat with respect others who may differ from us in many ways, such as race, gender, religion, and political beliefs. Help us listen carefully to others without judging, and to have honest, open conversations where different points of view are truly valued and welcome. We pray this since we are made in your image, the source of all our unity. Amen.
You're ready to go, Jeff? Go ahead.
Okay, first I'll read the opening poem.
No, sorry, my fault. Wrong thing.
It's okay. When I awake in the morning, it is either the very next day after many, many days, or it is the very first day. When it is the very next day after many, many days, I know the time has come for me to walk through the door, to take a look at that dark part of me that is calling, and to touch that place of willingness to look again. I know the time has come for me to walk through the door, to take a look at this critic within, who only wants me to listen to what needs to be heard, so I can then heal and bring that part of me back to me. When I awake in the morning, it is either the very next day after many, many days, or it is the very first day. Today, it is the very first day of what exists now. All right, so today's song, actually it's a song that Joni Mitchell wrote for her friend Neil Young when he turned 20, and he was very upset that he hadn't accomplished anything in his life as he was passing through the threshold to adulthood. So Joni wrote a song about this. It's called The Circle Game. Feel free to sing along. Yesterday, a child came out to wonder, caught a dragonfly inside a jar. Fearful when the sky was full of thunder, and tearful at the falling of a star. And the seasons, they go round and round, and the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on the carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came, and go round and round and round in the circle game. Then the child moved 10 times round the seasons, skated over 10 clear frozen streams. Words like, when you're older, must appease him, and promises of someday make his dreams. And the seasons, they go round and round, and the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on the carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came, and go round and round and round in the circle game. 16 springs and 16 summers gone now. Cartwheels turn to car wheels through the town, and they tell him, take your time, it won't be long now, till you drag your feet to slow the circles down. And the seasons, they go round and round, and the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on the carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came, and go round and round and round in the circle game. So the years spin by, and now the boy is 20. Though his dreams have lost some grandeur coming true, there'll be new dreams, maybe better dreams and plenty, before the last revolving year is through. And the seasons, they go round and round, and the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on the carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came, and go round and round and round in the circle game. And go round and round and round in the circle game.
Hi, John.
Barry, you should be all set.
Thank you. So let's talk about thresholds. And let's start with something from John O'Donohue. Like spring secretly at work within the heart of winter, below the surface of our lives, huge changes are in fermentation. We never suspect a thing. Then, when the grip of some long enduring winter mentality begins to loosen, we find ourselves vulnerable to a flourish of possibility, and we are suddenly negotiating the challenges of a threshold. At any time, you can ask yourself, which threshold am I now standing? At this time in my life, what am I leaving? Where am I about to enter? A threshold is not a simple boundary. It is a frontier that divides two different territories and rhythms and atmospheres. It is indeed a lovely testimony to the fullness and integrity of an experience or a stage of life, and that it intensifies towards the end into a real frontier that cannot be crossed without the heart being passionately engaged and woken up. At this threshold, a great complexity of emotion comes alive. Confusion, fear, excitement, sadness, hope. This is one of the reasons such vital crossings were always clothed by the Celts in ritual. It is wise in your own life to be able to recognize and acknowledge the key thresholds. Take your time. Feel all the varieties of presence that accrue there. Listen inward with complete attention until you hear the inner voice calling you forward. The time has come to cross. So, although Molly was nice enough to introduce things, thresholds is probably an odd word for you to think of for reflection. The Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of threshold is a strip of wood or metal forming the bottom of the doorway crossed when entering a house. And yes, the Celts saw a threshold as a doorway, but it was much, much more. The doorway into a Celt's home was an in-between space. It was considered a sacred space because it marked the boundary between the life of the family within and the world without, where the power of the other world could flow into our own. And if that sounds as though it borders on the supernatural, let's not use that word. Let's use the word spiritual. And the Celts were not alone in honoring the transition of a crossing of a threshold. The Buddhist monks create a high threshold, somewhere between 6 to 8 inches high. And that requires those that are entering to be very attentive. You step over something that's 6 or 8 inches high and not paying attention, you will fall flat on your face. And what this also did was to make people very conscious of the fact that they were leaving the outside world and entering one that was more spiritual. And the Hindus decorate the outside of the door of their home with a rangoli, which is both art and science because it creates a frequency, a vibration that brings the other world into our own world. And the Hindus believe that the rangoli uses that vibration pattern and it's a part of their culture that they use for spiritual purposes. So we've set the stage, a threshold. And so in this reflection, I'm going to ask you to suspend what you know about the material world and step into a world where thresholds hold a special significance. I'd like to take you into the understanding of thresholds so you will find yourself more open to the world of the sacred. So if we're attentive and aware of our surroundings and we pull our head out of our digital world, I don't know what you thought I was going to say, but digital world, we can be more aware of the effects of thresholds. They're transitionary places that are all around us. A threshold is recognized as being a place or time of transition or change where what you have left behind has not quite transpired into what you're about to step into. And the Celts believe that a threshold is a thin space, a place where heaven and earth are closer together and the veil between the worlds are very thin. And so as Molly mentioned, when seeing a beautiful sunrise, as the sun begins to awaken the world, or the sunset as the final rays are starting to recede behind a mountain or into the ocean, the Celts would offer thanks. They would offer a blessing for this gift that has been given to them. And as we step outside our own homes and we feel the brush of the first day on our bodies and breathe in the air, take in the weather, we've crossed a threshold. The next time you go from one room to the next, let's be a little more aware and try this. Stop and take 3 deep breaths. With the first one, recognize what you've just left behind. With the second one, look at what you see around you. And then, with the third breath, look at where you're headed. Now, what's this going to do? You're going to have to slow down, be aware, and experience the world around you rather than just running on autopilot. Now, I personally incorporated this practice of awareness, this 3-breath awareness, when I step out of my house for the first day, and it has granted me beautiful memories. Slow breaths, deep belly breaths, and an offering of a blessing. And I do it in more simple times, just when I'm entering my home office for the first time during the day. I'm consciously aware of that transition, and it keeps me from just mindlessly meandering through my day. Now, thresholds aren't just a physical phenomenon. They're also times of change in our life, times when we're closing a chapter and we're not yet fully into the next chapter. Think of it as a little bookmark. And so let's close your eyes for a minute. You're in pretty safe company with me. Since I'm on Zoom, I can't really take you anywhere except in your imagination. But if you close your eyes, let's go together and take some deep breaths, and let's look at some times and ponder some happy changes and some happy situations, like the welcoming of a new child to a family, like starting a new job, like moving to a new house or a new neighborhood. How does that feel in your body? What memories does that conjure for you? Now, let's do the same for what I refer to as opportunities for spiritual growth and learning. Not always happy times. Things such as an illness, a physical accident, loss of a family member, or a friend, either through a fractured relationship or through death. These, my friend, are thresholds. Times when we're closing a chapter, but we may not have quite emerged into the next chapter. They are thresholds. Now, as I was doing reading on thresholds, I realized that this transition is what Father Richard Rohr refers to in his daily meditations as the cycle of wisdom: order, disorder, and reorder. Yes, it's that middle one that's a threshold. It's disorder. The time when we're no longer in the past and we're in a time and space that might feel disorienting, full of anxiety and uncertainty. It might not be total chaos, but it's always unsettling. It's kind of like leaving the safety of the land to venture into the water, but on a starless, moonless night and not knowing when you're going to get to the other shore. I can't think of a time when I was being in a threshold or in this state of disorder that I enjoyed it. But you know what? It was the time when I was most transformed. It is the time that when you go through disorder or you pass through a threshold, that you are dying to yourself or your ego and have an opportunity to be born anew. And when you do land on that other side, after that being in that boat, you can't go back again. That doesn't sound so good, but let's consider why we can't go back. Well, let's just take a very simple example. Let's say that you've moved from one town to another. I've done this quite often. And then you go back to your old neighborhood and you're visiting with your old friends. While those relationships are still strong, everyone has been changed by their unshared experiences. You can't go back through a threshold and be in the same place that you were because you have changed. Maybe you know where I'm taking you now. If we reflect back 14 months ago, oh yeah, that was a big threshold. We all collectively stepped through that threshold. Or maybe a better word is we were thrust through that threshold. And each of our lives were changed in a number of different ways. For some, jobs were lost. For others, loved ones were lost. For students and teachers, they found themselves navigating a 100% virtual environment. It was abrupt, it was foreign, it was unsettling, to say the least. And I work from home full time. I know some of my colleagues prefer the solitude of being at home. I also know that some of them have struggled with almost, let's just say it, mental illness from having been in such isolation. There were disruptions to normal life in varying degrees, from working from home to wearing masks to postponing holidays and weddings. And we can't go back to normal because this whole experience has changed us. And so where are we right now? Well, you know, the numbers for vaccinations and hospitalizations and so forth look pretty good. So I think it's safe to say that we're about to venture back into a new normal of the post-pandemic world. And after months of limited personal interaction or limited in-person interaction with others, we're emerging into what we might want to be the old normal, but let's not be fooled. Our time of not attending in-person gatherings, either in the classroom, the office, or in our community has changed us. Some of us are going to find it difficult to loosen that cloak of anxiety about being in crowds of real people and continue to social distance. I know I do. I still cross the street while I'm walking in the neighborhood. You know, and yet I know others that are embracing the ability to hop on a plane, to visit their family, to return to the office among their colleagues, and they're just giddy with enthusiasm. And so here we are, going from order to disorder to order. We're passing through a threshold, and each of us is going to find ourselves and others changed. So what do? We will need to be sensitive and compassionate in our interactions with the stranger, as well as our own family, friends, and communities. And so I leave you peace. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Namaste.
Thank you, Sherry. For today's chant, we're going to try something a little bit different. We have a video. For those of you who've had the opportunity to spend time with John Philip Newell, this chant may be familiar to you. It's actually something that he adopted. Um, very simple words. Whichever way you turn, there is the face of God. Kind of a threshold sort of a chant. That's why we chose it for today. And so, to Sherry's point, just close your eyes, relax, and enjoy the chant.
the face of God, whichever way you turn, whichever way you turn, whichever way you turn, there is the face of God. Whichever way you turn, whichever way you turn, whichever way you turn, there is the face of God. Whichever way you turn, whichever way you turn, whichever way you turn, there is the face of God.
Mary. Bear with me just a second. So you ought to be able to hit your unmute, Mary.
In reading the bold print.
Abiding spirit of the day and night,
Accept our prayers for those who rise to work and those who lay down to sleep at night. May their days prosper the health of your creation. May their nights restore them to rise again in love.
abiding spirit of the land and seas,
Accept our prayers for protection of your earth and sea. Help us to heal the imbalances we have created. Help us to cleanse the waters we have polluted. May our minds and bodies resonate with your creation to change the precarious position we now face.
abiding spirit of the nature kingdoms,
Accept our prayers for the grasses and trees, for the bushes and fruit-bearing seeds. May we help to replenish our forests and protect our green earth.
abiding spirits of all of creation,
Accept our prayers of thanksgiving for the animals with whom we share this earth and the creatures of the sea with whom we share these waters. May they increase in numbers and may we honor their lives.
abiding spirits of all of our creation,
Accept our prayers for the peoples of this earth, equal in your sight, beloved human beings created in your image, to bring you and each other gifts of love and companionship. Empower us to help all who need support, food, shelter, and work.
be with all who mourn, dear Lord,
And with all the souls who have gone home to you, be with all who live with illness and with those who care for them. Be with all who seek reconciliation, who dream of a better world, and who take action to that end.
amen.
May the light of your soul mind you. May all your worry and anxiousness about your age be transfigured. May you be given wisdom for the eyes of your soul to see this as a time of gracious harvesting. May you have the passion to heal what has hurt you and allow it to come closer and become one with you. May you have great dignity. Sense how free you are. Above all, may you be given the wonderful gift of meeting the eternal light that is within you. May you be blessed, and may you find a wonderful love in yourself for yourself.
That really is the path, Jeff, to find a wonderful love inside yourself for yourself. It's a sure thing God loves you. Now love yourself. That's the challenge, but that is the work. Peace of the running wave to you. Peace of the flowing air to you. Peace of the quiet earth to you. Peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace to you. I hope you will stay with us to teach you what you know about God, because I guarantee you, you know. Just trust it. Thank you, everybody who gave this service. It was perfect. And if we can love the shadow side of ourselves, we will come into wholeness. And I honestly believe that is what God is interested in. A human being fully alive. Not just nice, not just smart, but all the parts alive and loved. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. In a moment, as a reminder for anyone who's new with us today, what I do is I change the settings such that everyone can control their own mute. And we invite you to stay for our fellowship and conversation, which will start up in just a moment. And if you are going to stay with us, and we hope that you will, if you're not speaking, we do ask you to stay on mute so that we don't get a lot of disruption and stuff in the background. And I always say, don't hold it against me. If I start to hear a lot of shuffling and ruffling, I will maybe jump in and mute somebody, but you'll be able to unmute yourself if you have something to say. Keep tabs on our website, which you see at the top of the page, ctcelticworship.org. I had a question that I haven't responded to yet that came in. What do we do with all the prayers and all the songs and the material that we share during the services and also during the Celtic contemplative walks? And we post it under the tab Things to Share on our website. I'll get the stuff from today out there within the next few days. The recording from today will also be out there within the next few days. And I'll try to get a little bit better. I'm a little backed up on the prayers from the walks, but we have those. So just keep checking it out. One other thing that we invite you to do is to share anything with us or prayer requests, if you didn't chat them over to Molly today, at our email address, ctcelticworship@gmail.com. You see it there in the middle of the screen. And also, we'd love to put you on our mailing list, if you're not on our mailing list, to keep you up to date with our various activities. We're heading into the summertime. We think we're going to have some programming. Stay tuned for information on that during the summertime. But the mailing list will make certain that you know what's going on. You also will receive some interesting little tidbits. For example, yesterday was the Celtic traditional feast of Beltane. And we've made note of that with the bonfire that's on the screen today. There was some discussion about me dancing naked around the bonfire in the Celtic spirit, but we did not capture that photograph. So you'll just have to see the bonfire itself on the screen here. So I think that if there are any questions, you can certainly bring them up during our chat. And I'm going to turn off the share here. And I'm going to change the settings such that you should, okay, everybody should be able to unmute themselves now. And thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, John, for just posting the fire. Seeing you dance around naked might have been difficult to explain to the bishop.
Oh, well.
I know. Even though he's a friend of mine.
It has burned an image in my mind. So thank you, John, for that. I appreciate it. Molly, I'm going to kick this off.
I'm depending on you, girlfriend.
I know you'll jump in case anybody decides that
How do you know?
too quiet. Ooh. But I will also warn all of you who have not met me before. I used to teach. And if you are quiet and do not share, I will call on you. So, yes. So Shannon, since you're nodding your head, you must have something that you can share with us today. Yes, you do. Because I know in a previous sharing session that we had, you talked deeply about moving from one neighborhood to the other. And that was a transition. So tell us how that felt.
Before I get to that, Sherry, can you tell me what breath number 2 is, please?
Please let me check my notes.
Thank you.
I did not want to mislead you in any way. I'm like that.
1 is what am I leaving behind, and 3 is where am I headed. But I think 2 was where the interesting part was, right?
2 is where are you now?
Where am I now?
So
Thank you.
just think about it. It's I left something behind me. I'm crossing through a doorway. Where am I now? And where am I going?
I like it. So instead of what you'd offered to me to talk about, I'm going to say that I feel like I'm on a threshold, which is reflective of what's behind me, of maybe starting or embarking or returning to a new job. I've been a matrimonial lawyer for more than 2 decades, and I got the political bug again last year, and I had loved working in that building behind us 35 years ago. And I'm thinking that I may need to return to that area. So I am definitely on a threshold and excited about it.
Just let me remind you that you can't go back.
No.
I tried this. So let me give you my own little personal reflection on this. So when I think it was the first time I lived in Pittsburgh, my youngest daughter was born, and my husband said, "Hey, I know you've never seen the place, but let's go to Georgia." And I went, "Oh, sure, that's great." I had been at my current employer for almost 10 years at that point. And I left, I went off, I taught. That's where I started to learn to pick on people and call on them and things like that. And when I went back, it was 5 years later, and the company had changed. A lot of the same people were there. I'd obviously changed. I didn't know what had been done, what had transacted before then. But they just assumed that I was the same person that I was, and I could just pick up where I'd left off. It was very hard the first couple of years, extremely hard for people to fully accept me for who I was in that moment as opposed to who I had been. And if you think going home after you have been in college is tough and dealing with your family, nothing like that. So it's very tough.
But all I need to do to remind me that it is very different and I am very different is to look at the photo that is behind me. Because the Capitol certainly doesn't look like it looked 35 years ago. And I was there right before the pandemic was declared. So we were driving down because I wanted to show my son my city and where I had worked and the Capitol that I used to give tours of. And as we were driving down on March 12th, my telephone started to ping with all of the tours that had been canceled for our 5-day vacation that we had planned. So we were very blessed that I have a lot of wonderful places in the city that are outdoors. And we saw 3 Smithsonian museums in one day because they closed the next day. So I'm very aware that at 58, I am very different than I was at 25. And we'll be going in with eyes open and heart full.
So as you say that, then I see some other folks that I could call on.
Oh, good. I'm going to mute myself now.
But before I call on you, who would like to share? Because calling on someone's not that good. But I have some friends here who will still love me if I call on them, like Brenda. You're in transition. I know you are. We talk at least every other week, if not sooner.
Well, thank you, I think, for
My
calling
friend-
on me, Sherry.
This is my friend
Go ahead.
Brenda. She is one of the few friends that I have asked to come, and she is the only one that did. And I know that she's going through a very special transition right now. So please share.
All right, well, it's very nice to be here. I've never been to a Celtic service before. Sherry and I hit it off real well at my previous job, her current job. She was a great support to me, a great friend, and I feel like we are spiritual sisters. So it was really nice to get a little window into what you do here, and I really enjoyed. I can't believe how much time passed because it flew by, and I loved the sharings and the chant, especially the prayers, beautiful. So thanks for welcoming me here. I am in a transition. I'm just not sure what to say about that. So I, by choice, left, a little bit similar to Shannon, by choice, left my previous career. I had been, my threshold was kind of broad maybe. I had been cutting back on my hours, went back to school and launching a new career maybe. Doing something entirely different that I'm very excited about. And I love that the three breaths, you know, the being grateful for what we left behind and the being in the present, taking in what's in front of us here. And then also reminding us that we're heading somewhere that we don't quite know what God has in store for us ahead of us. But at this stage in my life, I love the feeling of trust and faith that whatever is ahead of me is what's supposed to be ahead of me. I see Shannon agreeing, and it's a wonderful way to live and be. And part of it is having the extra time to spend time with folks who see things that way too, because there's so much that I learn. I loved that chant. I wrote it down. Whichever way you turn, there is the face of God. I mean, part of the face of God is the 20-some people that are on the screen here. I love it, and thanks for letting me be here. Good to see you, Cher.
Now there's got to be somebody else. Like Mary, I know you've been through transitions, and you were the one that told me about Rangulis. So you get to share too.
Okay, am I on now? Yeah. Yeah, the Rangolis were very powerful for me. I was traveling through India and saw these chalk drawings on the sidewalk just in front of the doorways into homes, and they were exquisite. The Hindus have this wonderful spiritual discipline. The oldest woman in the house, the grandmothers, get up early in the morning and draw these designs in front of the front door so that everybody who crosses the threshold is blessed, and everyone who comes over the threshold to enter the world from inside the house is blessed. I loved that concept, and it has stayed with me all these years. It's been a long time since I was over there, but I've never forgotten it. And I've often thought that what our threshold symbols are, and I loved the song that Jeff chose about the circle. Jeff, was that you or was that Norm? I forget. Anyway, Joni Mitchell's song, because I remember it from when I was young, talk about transitions. But there's the circle image is in every single religion in the entire world. The Native Americans have their sand mandalas, and the Buddhists are famous, of course, for their mandalas. And the interesting thing about that tradition is that monks do these amazingly intricate drawings with colored sand, and they bless them, and it's an offering. But then the next day they take it and they go and they pour it in the river, because everything's in transition. You can't cross the same threshold twice. And if you think about it, you think about every day you cross the threshold of your home, and every day you go out to the possibility that your life could be completely upended before you cross that threshold back again. We don't know what God has in store for us. And it isn't always fun. It isn't always a wholly exciting, sometimes threshold experiences are very frightening. And in those times, we need to remember that wherever you look, there is the face of God as well. And that's where faith comes in. And I think that's all I want to say.
It was beautiful. Thank you. I've got Gail. Perfect. I was going to call on you, please.
Hi, Sherry and everybody. One of the first things that came to mind when Molly said, of course, we already know God. We know about God. And one thing that seems to have over time been a very simple, reassuring statement for me to remember is that through faith, what Mary was saying, to believe that God provides us with all that we are ever going to need to live this life. Just a general acceptance that God is our provider, and we will have what we need to make these transitions, to cross these thresholds, even if it's challenging and not easy, and we have to regroup and whatever. God will provide. It's provided through creation, through our networks, and all that. And the second thing was, been doing music for like the last 5 years or so with Rhythms of Grace for families with different needs like autism. And for the Epiphany, one in January after Christmas, the woman who does the curriculum taught us something new that I never had known about, and it has to do with thresholds. So you've all been talking about thresholds on the ground, 6 or 8 inches up, or drawings in front of the threshold of the door, right? And what she was talking about was the, I don't know what you call it, the above the door, that part of the threshold of walking through a door, because it was the point of God is telling Mary and Joseph, or Joseph in that dream, you need to go home another way. You can't go back right now. It's too dangerous. You need to go to Egypt. You need to go somewhere else, and God will provide for you. So what she had us do was take chalk and encouraged us to draw above all the rims, the door frames above in our homes, the year that we are in, the new year. So say 2020 at the beginning and 21 at the end, and then the 3 wise men initials. So Melchior, Caspar, and Balthazar. So I did this. I went through my home with the chalk and I put it above the front door, the back door, and between the kitchen, the dining room. Anyway, it was a really wonderful ritual. You know, when you talk about rituals, about thresholds and wanting for blessings to be for everybody in the home as they move amongst different rooms and into their day, and especially with the pandemic. So anyway, that was another kind of ritual that I'd never heard of.
Thank you, Gail. I have to say something now.
Oh.
Can't help it. This is the way the Spirit works in me.
Uh-huh.
I sit, and about the 5th time it comes up, I say, okay. Isn't it interesting that Joseph and Mary, with the baby Jesus, who by now was probably about 2, honestly, those wise men did not get there overnight,
Right.
went to Egypt.
Yep.
If they're anything like our family, if we have an emergency, we usually look for relatives to visit. I am pretty sure that that means that probably Mary, because it's usually the mom's relatives, had relatives in Egypt. That has to mean that Jesus is dark complected, maybe Middle Eastern, maybe African, maybe both. One of the real silver linings of this pandemic, and when it started, I wouldn't have given you any possibility that this could happen, is I have been taking a class with John Dominic Crossan out of Pendle Hill with the Quakers, and with, I think, the biggest prophet in my life for this time, Cynthia Bourgeot, with Richard Rohr on the meaning of Mary Magdalene.
Oh, yes.
Well, the combo, because Mary Magdalene and Jesus' mom are my girls. They are my role models.
Yeah.
And the combo has been perfect because, well, what Cynthia said last week was, we are in one of those axial moments where religions that are on, several religions on our planet need to die. And several of our institutions. And the women in Jesus' life are coming forth now. And I feel we are in our culture and in the planet so out of balance that that is essential. What has been wonderful about John Dominic Crossan, he's Irish, he's Jesuit, he left and got married, and he's a New Testament wizard, part of the Jesus seminar with Marcus Borg and all the big dudes and women. And what John Dominic Crossan is showing us is Roman art, and that Constantine knew nothing of Jesus of Nazareth, nothing. The God he knew was Caesar Augustus, and the God we are worshiping is Caesar Augustus, whom the Roman Empire called the Son of God, a virgin birth between his mother and the Roman god Apollo, the savior of the world, because Cleopatra picked up Mark Antony and they got out of there, and Caesar Augustus declared himself the victor over Greece. Do you recognize those names? He just put Caesar Augustus up as Jesus of Nazareth. He knows nothing about Judaism. And as my favorite bishop, Jack Spong, said, if we had only studied Judaism, we would not have this. We would not have this. There is no good Jew who would ever have called himself Son of God. Not possible. It's blasphemy in that religion. When they speak of God, it's a breath sound. It's not God. It's Yahweh. They don't even try and name God. They know God is way beyond naming, understanding. So Trinity Church, the church that ordained me on Sigourney Street in Hartford, asked me to do their coffee hour this morning. Little did they know what they were getting. Well, maybe they did. But the bishop, Drew Smith, had just done the service. And they wanted to talk about, so what now? And I said, I know of no better place to have the conversation on racism than Trinity Church. You have always been inclusive. Look what you did with me. I didn't go to Yale Divinity School to become a priest. I went to Yale Divinity School to get to know God better. It was your idea that I be a priest. So the way you included us, my daughter was the first female acolyte. She chewed bubble gum, but she was still the acolyte. Our kids, my boys, used to hit the Goodwin Hall for coffee hour, and it was dangerous the way they ran through. And we were worried for Hazel, who was on her walker, and a very generous member. You loved all of us very, very well. And that's what my first church, St. Andrew's, did when I was 5. And if you love my kids, then I'll be back. But I won't be back now, because I know what we are saying is just not true. We are worshiping Caesar Augustus. That can't work. And we have never known anything really about his mother, about his other 2 Aunt Marys, about his grandmother. Thank God, by the time we got to the Gospel of John, it says the women were under the cross. The women are Jewish mothers. They were always there. Always there. My favorite New Testament professor, Luke Johnson, was standing in front of hundreds of us in Yale Auditorium. We had our heads down, scribbling as fast as we could, because he was brilliant. He kicked the chair in front of him, and we all looked up, and he said, so how did they know what Jesus said in Gethsemane if the apostles were asleep? I'll tell you how they knew. His mother was always there. Of course she was. She's a Jewish mother. I live in West Hartford. I know what that means. You're going to have good food. You're going to have good schools. You're going to have great music. You're going to have good musical theater. And we're going to insist on it. and we'll be glad to pay the taxes. And that's exactly why we moved here. And we joined the Ribicoff law firm, and we were the only Gentiles in the law firm and the only Gentiles on our block. And it was really good for us.
Mhm.
And they were good for us. And we were good for them. They loved our Christmas tree. They loved playing football in the front yard. And Yom Kippur was the only hard day because our kids had to go to school and everybody else had all their relatives over. But when it came to Hanukkah, it was fine because they got presents every night for 8 days. Just saying what I said right to Drew Smith, the bishop, and to my dear, dear, beautiful friends at Trinity Church is we have a chance to get this right. We have a chance to find out who is Jesus, who is Mary, who is Magdalene, who are the other Marys in the gospel that are all his relatives. Anna, grandma, was married 3 times. She had 3 girls. She named them all Mary. Pope Gregory decided they were all the same woman and that woman used nard to anoint Jesus and she must be a prostitute in 594. They finally rescinded it in 19 something, 64, 84, but it didn't even make the back page of the New York Times. Mary Magdalene is his wife. He's a Jewish man in the 1st century. Of course she's his wife. She's his best disciple. At least we have her as the apostle to the apostles. Of course she recognized him. More importantly, she and his mom went to teach the apostles in the upper room the 50 days after Easter about who he really was and what the message was. And it wasn't just for now. It was that we could always find the Spirit. We could always connect to him. They knew they could. We need to find out that we can. And more importantly, that the very same Spirit that lives in him lives in every one of us. And that's the Spirit we need to connect to. That is what Pelagius told us. We do know who God is. We just have to trust it and not listen, frankly, anymore to the church because they don't have it right. And for 1700 years, we've been doing that. And believe you me, if you're an ordained priest for 36 years and you stand up there in a woman's body and never once is the divine feminine named, and you get to Iona and holy moly, there is a Celtic theologian that talks about the divine feminine. The Celts have always had the divine feminine. Of course they have. How can you have a divine child without a divine feminine? It is not possible. Carl Jung told us that. So it's time, as our dear friend Mahatma Gandhi said, if there is ever to be peace in the world, it will be the women in the West. Okay, women, it's our turn. And all the good men who know we have got to get in balance. Women, we can't, being nice is not going to do it. Nice women don't make history. We've got to speak up. We've got to be willing to stand up. We've got to say, that's not right. That can't possibly be true. No good Jew would ever say that about himself. And he was a good Jew. One final thing, sorry I'm preaching, but damn, I was ordained. Jesus gets in trouble with women in the Gospels. Thank God we have those stories. Those are his bad hair days. He is in Samaria talking to a woman who's been divorced 5 times, at a well at noon, asking for water. Somehow he knows she will go back and convert the entire village. Now, they don't even come and get water with her. That's why she's there at noon. It's too damn hot. And he strikes up a conversation. This was not his neighborhood. He could have been killed. An Orthodox rabbi, which he was by practice, should never have been talking to a woman, never accepted water. Yes, she does. Go back and tell everybody in the village, come out and listen to this guy. He has something to say. Or how about the one where the woman's daughter is sick and he won't heal her? And she says to him, well, even the dogs have the crumbs under the table. Whoops, not his best day. We got a few of the tidbits of why he spoke to women. It was the women in his family that taught him. It was the women in his life that informed him of who he was and what they could do. It was a woman who told him he came out to the Gentiles, not just to the Jews. The dogs get the crumbs under the table too. I feel passionately about this because I think we've got about 10 years to heal our mother, the earth. And doggone it, I care that my grandkids have something left. So I'm not going to go along with all the power over stuff anymore. We all know who God is, and we need to speak up, because every bit of this, from the smallest quark to the entire cosmos, is made in the image of God. It's all God's. We have no right to destroy it. And we will not survive. The earth will go on. She's tough. We won't. All right, I'll quit preaching, but I want us to start taking ourselves seriously, get busy, and if you see the divine feminine in any way not included or disgraced, speak up. I have no idea. I may get a letter from the bishop saying I'm excommunicated, but I don't think so. Because he's a good friend of mine. They all are. Isn't that weird? Well, anyway.
He's retiring anyway, Molly, so.
Yes, he is. He's my fave. When I preached on the feminine, the divine feminine, I sent him thinking, oh, he'll never listen. He's very busy. He wrote me back in 15 minutes and said, Molly, you don't know who I am. The two women at Episcopal Divinity School who were illegally ordained in 1974 gave up their salary increase to create my position there. Oh, glad to know. So I just want to encourage all of us to really pay attention to the divine feminine. She lives in all of us. Yes, we have a masculine side, but we have a feminine side too. And men need to be able to cry, and boys need to be able to be sad and be emotional. And women need to be able to be tough and demanding. My poor children and family, but anyway. This is Mother Superior signing off.
Next Sunday is Mother's Day, Mom. That's when I had to listen to you. You're muted.
Someone asked me on the Celtic walk how I knew you were my child. And I looked at Sarah and said, well, when she started to talk.
So
Thanks, everybody. Sorry to go on, but this pandemic has had surprising silver linings. Totally surprising. I never would have gotten to take a class with John Dominic Crossan. He's in Orlando. I have taken 4 classes with Cynthia. She's brilliant.
Molly, I don't know how to follow up that act other than to ask anyone if they have any thoughts about the divine feminine, about the fact that Jesus is not Caesar Augustus. I kind of figured that out, and I knew that he was not blonde or blue-eyed. So I kind of knew that he was Middle Eastern. So we're okay on that one. Not get her started again.
I
Jeff.
just want to say that thresholds, we are on one.
Oh yeah.
I know my daughter's dying, but so what? We are on one. And if we take it seriously, we can make a difference. Every 50 years, we have a chance with racism. We're there now. Please, let's do better than we did with the civil rights movement. Bye. Thank you for being with us. I'll stay and listen, I promise.
Exercising the mute button soon, Molly.
No, I was just going to say that this has been great because it feels like we are at this amazing opportunity to cross across the threshold into the divine feminine, and look what all that can bring us. Oh my goodness. So thank you for sharing that, Molly.
But just understand that it's not without being in a complete state of confusion and anxiety, and that transition. Changes are not pleasant. And I believe there's a famous quote that says that people who are not in charge will fight anyone who is in charge. Machiavelli. That they will fight change tooth and nail because they don't profit from it. So, you know, people will cling to what has been before, and you have to poke, prod, or entice them to come along with you. So, you know, Molly, your voice is strong, and what you're doing is you're calling the rest of us to follow. Happy to do it. So with that, John, we probably are at time, I believe maybe a little over. So
Sherry, let me say, we do it together.
we do.
We do it together. And the fact that you're with us today means that you are looking for something more. Well, if we do it together, we'll find something more, because every one of us brings gifts and perspective and all kinds of abilities.
Molly, you keep saying things that make me think, wow, that's a great ending. And then you go again, that's a great ending. That's a great ending. So man, you're taking us across a lot of thresholds here. I love it.
Jerry, this is Bruce Loudon speaking.
Shit.
Thank you. I don't need that. Sherry, I recall being in our prior spiritual community with you, your husband, and your 2 great daughters. And I simply, as I heard you speak the reflections and loving what you had to say, I wanted to thank you for having crossed the threshold to the Celtic community. So thank you, Sherry.
And I'm ever so pleased to be here, Bruce. So thank you for being here with me.
I'm going to take the privilege of, although I did set it up so that anybody can share. This is a photograph right here that I took at Rock of Cashel in Ireland which is a very sacred spot. If anybody's familiar with it, it's a beautiful spot. It's probably my favorite spot in Ireland. And this was the cover of, this photograph was on the cover of the program of our very first Celtic Worship. And I just, as I'm listening to Thresholds and thinking about Thresholds, I thought, well, at least for my personal journey, I'm still in that threshold, but wow, how incredibly metaphorical or something this photograph has proven to me, because when I took it in 2011, I had no idea of the journey that I'd be on. And, you know, I tease you, Molly, I think you know that, but you're spot on. You know, men have messed the world up massively. The Celtic journey that I'm on, and actually you can see the Celtic cross out there. This was not, it's actually a cemetery. There's a graveyard up on top of the hill, but this is just so symbolic to me, this photograph. And you know, I just am so pleased to have found this way. And I think, you know, I think I'm stuck on that threshold, but I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. But I just, as I said, I thought of this photograph again, and I wanted to share it today with all of you.
John, this is me again.
Where's my mute? I'm going to hit the mute all button.
Shannon, it'll be perfectly all right, because you wouldn't be you without me, girlfriend.
Yeah.
So I recommend that all of us, when we wake up tomorrow morning, go to the window and thank God for what's there. And as a matter of fact, right now, there is no prettier place on the planet than Connecticut. If you have allergies, stay inside, because I do, and I'm sniffing away. But oh my goodness, the flowering bushes. I mean, if that isn't female, what is it? Just go take a look at what God has created for us, and maybe say thank you.
Or if you're in Salt Lake City, Utah, and too. Okay? It's not just Connecticut that's beautiful this time of year.
And we have allergies too.
My friends say, is this a 2 Clarendon day or a 1 Clarendon day? Thank you so much for being with us. As our wonderful Mary Oliver says, pay attention. It might be the blue iris. It might be the weeds in the lot next door. It might be the stone in your shoe. Pay attention. If you're quiet enough, you just might hear the other voice. That's what we're trying to do, to hear each other's voices. Thanks for joining us. Have a beautiful week.
Happy Mother's Day, every mother. And thank you, Sherry, for your wonderful reflection.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Shannon. Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you in a month.
Namaste. Namaste.
Thanks.
2 weeks. See you on the contemplative walk.
All right. 2 weeks.